right now from KTAB News, your local election headquarters. This is Big Country Politics.
Thank you for being here for this week's edition of Big Country Politics. I'm Victor Sotelo. We start our broadcast with our eye on the economy. Even though the pandemic is hurting some small businesses, the Abilene economy seems to be more resilient than other parts of the state. HSU economics professor Dr. John Hill says Abilene's economy as a whole is doing well. Our Molly Capers spoke with him to find out why.
While some cities across Texas are struggling, Abilene is doing fairly well.
Money that drives our economic base is very predictable.
Professor of economics John Hill says it's because Abilene has a strong financial foundation.
We've got universities, so guaranteed student loans. We've got hospitals, so Medicaid, Medicare. We've got a military base. The money that drives our economic base is very predictable,
which he says keeps our economy balanced and steady, especially during COVID.
In Abilene, the attitude has been, we need to continue doing business or we're going to have no business.
Hill says the community plays a huge role in supporting the economy.
Still see a downtown district where people have a plan and they're moving forward. And you go to a place like Grain Theory and it is wall-to-wall people from front to back.
And Grain Theory co-owner David Castleman says they're feeling that support.
We've had some really good support from people.
Despite opening in the midst of a pandemic, the community is still going out to dinner and spending local.
Something a little different about it. I get a feeling that it's more than just because we knew. There is a foundational support there that I think will continue even after we've been open a few months.
Hill says when you have a strong economic foundation and a supportive community, cities like Abilene can thrive, even in a pandemic. In Abilene with coverage you can count on. Marley Copper, KTAB News.
And Abilene remains in the lowest top 5 unemployment rates in the state throughout the pandemic. And now to our eye on the pandemic. An additional 1,200 people vaccinated in Abilene, with the Public Health District holding another mass vaccination clinic. This will continue for the foreseeable future. KTAB's Jessica Rank reports what you need to know before you walk in the door.
Another 1,200 will make their way to the convention center this Friday, taking their shot at slowing the pandemic. But before the cars arrive and the vaccines administered, come the phone calls.
There are a lot of people who are not answering their phones.
It's the second step in making an appointment, and the Public Health District says many are not following through.
They had called well over 700 people and only got like 300 scheduled.
The most likely reason is connected to the phone number. People won't recognize it, it'll say it's unknown, or sometimes spam risk.
You need to answer it if you've got your name on the waiting list.
And right now, that's 17,000 people.
Certainly, if it sounds suspicious or anything, that they're trying to ask you for money or any personal information, hang up. It's not us.
In fact, the Public Health District won't be asking any personal information.
So we're going to ask you if this is, your name and offer you an appointment.
For those still looking to get on the wait list,
who do you have that you could call that could help you fill it out?
Lerma is encouraging the younger population to call their family members and log on.
They can live in California and they can still go to our website, pull up our form, take mom and dad's information over the phone, put it into the computer, hit submit. That signs them up.
It could mean the difference between hours and minutes for the older population.
Reach out to them and offer assistance.
Just 1,200 will be vaccinated Friday.
We've got to continue to be safe.
A slow process, but a process nonetheless.
Now remember, this upcoming clinic is for people who have already registered and received a phone call that they're supposed to be there. Now, because Abilene is a hub, you don't have to live in Taylor County to be on that list. Now, moving on to our eye on Texas. Texas Governor Greg Abbott outlining some of his legislative priorities during what he called a listening session in San Antonio this last week. He touched on workforce, small business protections, and more. KTAB's Austin Bureau correspondent Wes Rappaport listened in on the listening session.
Definitely, it's been different.
At the Polka Dot Alley boutique in Lubbock, store manager Kim Halstead spends a lot of time thinking about protecting her customers.
Keep everyone safe while still being able to get out and shop and do the things that they need to do.
It's businesses like this that Governor Greg Abbott says he wants to protect.
I'm working with the legislature on a bill that provides civil liability protections for both individuals and businesses that operated in good faith during the course of the pandemic.
Abbott also said he wants to continue building a strong workforce, and he's asking the legislature to streamline project permits.
Compared to other segments of the economy, construction has been well off during this pandemic. However, that doesn't mean that we haven't encountered our roadblocks and difficulties.
The Texas Construction Association wants to make sure the subcontractors get a seat at the table.
If we don't have enough subcontractors, plumbers, electricians, mechanical skilled tradespersons, if we don't have enough of those type of people, then we can't build the buildings for the new businesses that are coming here.
Abbott also promised to keep tapping into the state's enterprise fund, which is used to lure businesses to Texas with grant money.
We will build a more prosperous future for all Texans.
With coverage you can count on, Wes Rappaport, KTAB News.
And the governor also mentioned expansion of broadband access as a priority this session. Now to our eye on education. President Biden says one of his primary goals within the first 100 days in office is to get most schools back open safely. And a new research from the CDC shows that might be possible, but there's a downside. Washington, D.C. correspondent Trevor Shirley has more on this give and take situation.
And while that's good news for parents and school districts, the report also says for schools to reopen safely, some activities still need to be curtailed, like indoor athletics or close contact sports like wrestling, which have been connected to higher rates of spread. The report also says students need to keep wearing masks, be socially distanced, and kept from being in large groups to contain any outbreaks. Beyond that, researchers say kids going back to school is also safer if community transmission of the virus is kept low, and that means continuing or restarting restrictions on things like bars and indoor dining. Basically, it comes down to communities determining what value they place on kids' education versus other activities in order to get schools reopened. The Biden administration has also asked Congress for $130 billion to get schools reopened.
As our COVID team has outlined, that's going to require testing materials, support for contact tracing, vaccinations for teachers, and ensuring they're equitably provided. But our CDC director and team will be looking into putting together some specific guidelines so there can be clarity on that front, which I know a lot of districts are looking for.
And health officials in Washington say they're doing what they can to ramp up vaccine production. And in the meantime, some cities and communities are also working to put teachers higher on the vaccine priority list so they can get access to those shots sooner. All right, still to come on Big Country Politics, we talked with the city of Abilene about its work on the new comprehensive plan and how you can have your voice heard. We're back in 2 minutes.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
All right, welcome back to Big Country Politics. Joining me is Cheryl Sawyers with the City of Abilene. What's your official title, by the way?
I'm the Planning Service Division Manager for the City of Abilene.
And you wear a lot of different hats. The reason we're here to talk today is one of these big hats you're wearing is the comprehensive plan.
Yes, the comprehensive plan for the City of Abilene. Basically, the comprehensive plan serves as a long-range growth opportunity to protect our environment and protect how we operate within the city. So what zones need to go where, and how can we protect our natural resources and also homes and things like that all along the way with our future physical development.
And all that stuff that you just said is all carefully mapped out and it's planned.
Yes.
And so we were talking right before we came back from commercial. We're supposed to do this every 10-ish years.
Yes.
It's been 16 since we've done the last one, right?
Right.
Tell us about the last comprehensive plan. What give us an idea of what that is.
So the last comprehensive plan was done in 2004. That comprehensive plan, set out some pretty lofty goals and objectives that we needed to do to get us to where we are now. It included a future land use development plan map, and that map has now kind of reached the end of its usefulness. We have now grown to the point where we're doing zoning just outside of the loop, and that plan map was not meant for that. So instead of Cheryl Sawyers sitting at the city deciding what the citizens want for outside of Loop 322 and outside of other areas in Abilene, I need the help from the public to tell me what we need to do moving forward.
And this kind of maps out, well, I should ask you, does this map out kind of where we want planning and zoning, city council, we kind of steer them in the right direction?
This is correct. This is the citizens' voice, their way to say, this is where I want to be in 2040. Here are the services that I want to see in 2040. Here, and even in the near future, 5, 10, 15 years from now, what I really want to see Abilene be, and where I really want to see Abilene grow as an inclusive city for all, with equity, all of those things, allowing our citizens to say what that looks like.
You're wanting citizens, and once we get into this, to be a little forward thinking and think in the future and say, hey, here's what I'd like to see in my city.
Yes, this is what I want my city to be for me. This is what I want my city to be for my parents. This is what I want for me, my children, my neighbors, all of it.
Which leads me to the next question. Can you give us a few examples of what came out of the last comprehensive plan? Kind of what was the result of that?
So the result of the last comprehensive plan was really just showing what uses need to be where. So whenever I get up in front of Planning and Zoning Commission and I give them a recommendation, this is a great use for this area. It's got the proper infrastructure for roads, sewer, water, and this business can be supported by the citizens of Abilene per traffic count, things like that. When I get up in front of them, that plan use map, our comprehensive plan, we look back on it and we say, yes, the citizens of Abilene said they wanted this to be an activity center, and it's supported in our plan map as a commercial activity. I can go ahead with confidence say the citizens of Abilene would approve of this decision, and I make my recommendation to the
because they steered us in that direction.
Yes.
16 years ago.
Yes.
and so now okay, this part of town, I know the citizens are okay with this being a commercial area.
Yes.
Correct? And that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
This is what we're talking about. We're also talking about other things. Aspirational goals. An aspirational goal that we talked about yesterday was, what does infrastructure mean? Infrastructure could mean water, sewer, but now it also means, high-speed internet connectivity, because we're all working from home. So an aspirational goal for possibly this plan could be in 2040, we all have access to that.
Well, and you mentioned high-speed internet. Surely some of the things that were thought of 16 years ago, we couldn't fathom the stuff we're talking about now, right?
Correct.
And that's why it's so important to update this
yes.
plan.
And in this plan that we're talking about, we're probably going to go through multiple exercises. Once it's adopted, then what we can do is in 5 years, we can go back and look at that language and update sections that need to be updated. Or we have an annual work program that's set in place where we can point to even capital improvements programs. So the citizens said they want this in the next 5 years. We can put that towards a capital improvement program that runs through our city budget, and also really guide how these things get built and done.
So this is not, hey, I want, and we're going to get to the survey in the next segment. This is not get the citizens to fill out this survey, and then we're going to look at the survey and put together this plan. Y'all have already been working on this with the stakeholders. To explain what stakeholders.
Yes, so I've had about 18 stakeholder meetings. This is everyone from our education community to people who have different types of mobility. I have had conversations with our MPO. There have been a lot of work up front to get us to the
MPO is the Metropolitan Planning Organization.
I'm sorry, yes.
They are the people who kind of steer the street work.
Yes.
And kind of I guess it's a clearinghouse for TxDOT, Abilene, and
sure, it brings all of this
county.
region together. So Jones County is a part of that, as well as Taylor County, and we have this really great I-20 corridor that we have to kind of take care of as well. So they are a part of the conversations. We've had conversations with our Home Builders Association. What do our developers need out of this? So those stakeholder conversations have been ongoing since October, as well as our Comprehensive Planning Advisory Committee, which is made up of 20 people who are in different places all over the city and have different perspectives and different needs to pour into this process. And we've had probably, I would say, 8 or 9 meetings with that group to say, here's what we've heard from the public here, and here's where we need some decisions here on what we need to do. So right now we're in a goal setting mode, and this survey is one of those big giant pieces we need for that.
Okay, they're wrapping us up, but when we come back on the next segment, we're going to talk about that survey, and I also want to talk to you about kind of what comes out of those meetings, because I'm very curious. It sounds very exciting, kind of the ideas that people are bringing to you. So we're going to talk about that when we come back with Cheryl Sawyers with the City of Abilene on Big Country Politics. We'll be back.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
All right, welcome back to Big Country Politics. We're continuing our conversation with Cheryl Sawyers with the City of Abilene, and we're talking about the comprehensive plan. I can't get that word out. And it's basically a map of where we want the city to go. We do this every so often, every 10 years. It's been a while since we've done the last one. And we talked about, before we went to break, about you having a meeting with the stakeholders, people from the community, giving you ideas of kind of where to steer this. What are some of those things that came out of that meeting?
So out of those stakeholder meetings, we've come up with 7 guiding principles, and I won't go through all of them, but a lot of them had to do with quality of life. So we're talking about education, we're talking about housing, we're talking about our health system being a hub for that kind of thing for our region, and those stakeholders were all engaged. We brought in the arts, we brought in all of the people who have a little bit of a piece of Abilene. Whenever you think of Abilene, Abilene is, and you fill in the blank. We brought in those stakeholders and we came up with some guiding principles. Abilene wants to be welcoming. Abilene wants to be a small town, but they also want to be innovative, and they want to support entrepreneurship. These are all the things that we're hearing out of our meetings. We're hearing that we need to be more inclusive to some of the people who have different types of mobilities than we have. So really changing the way that we look at our ADA and how we move in that direction. Making sure that we have different mixed uses so that you can live, work, and play possibly in your own neighborhood. So I don't have to get in my car and drive all the way to some place to work or have a really wide roadway.
Are people mentioning that? Do they want that?
They are absolutely mentioning that. They want a mixed use space where they can let's say mom brings you home from the hospital as an infant, and yet whenever you get to be an elderly person, maybe you don't have the use of your car anymore, you can still walk on the sidewalk all the way to the store and get the things that you need. So yes, that is 100% what we are hearing, is people really want to improve their quality of life. And I think part of that could be the pandemic. Being at home and having to stay home, you realize, wait a minute, I don't have an ability to walk from here to there safely. So safe routes to schools was a conversation that we are having, and making sure that the health and wellness that we have is attainable, because not everybody wants to ride a bike on the street or put their 5-year-old on a bike on the street. So it may feel safe for me to run, but it might not feel safe for you to run.
Well, and you mentioned this bringing stuff within walking distance. I can see how this information would be valuable to people who want to open businesses, entrepreneurs who will take this information from the community and say, okay, here's what the community wants. maybe I can build my business around this, which is the idea, right?
Right, and I'll take it a step further and say the idea is also for the city to be completely involved in that process. So if the citizens want it and the business owners want to be able to do that, we need to be able to adapt on the city side to be able to facilitate that. So what happens after this process would be almost a complete overhaul of our land development code in order for us to get there. And so this is quite the undertaking. We're asking our citizens to tell us what they need, and we will respond to that.
Let's get to that survey.
Yes.
How do people get to the survey? What kind of questions? Everything survey. Tell us about it.
Okay, so go to connectabilene.com.
Connectabilene.com.
And right there on that page, it will say, take a survey.
Okay.
Take the survey, and the survey is like 20 questions long. It might not even take you 10 minutes to do. What I've heard as far as feedback is you told me to choose my top 3. I have 10. I don't know which ones to choose. I have so many that I want to choose. So I had a few people say the survey was hard because I want all of those things that you've put out there. And so the survey is one way for our citizens to be able to insert themselves in this foundational part of the process where we are setting goals for the comprehensive plan and for what future land use in Abilene looks like.
And we're setting goals for the next 10 years.
At least the next 10 years.
At least the next 10 years.
I would say that even more so what we're doing is setting goals for the next 5 years that we want to implement pretty quickly, and then we will have that roll over every single year as part of our work program and feed right into our capital improvements program.
So, and some of the things you talked about as far as having a mixed use area, it's kind of what downtown is almost becoming, right? I mean,
downtown is a really great example. Another really awesome example would be over on the Judge Ely and where ACU is. They have a few mixed developments going in, and the city has had to been a little creative in with our current land development code to be able to allow some of that to happen. So there are places to eat, there's walking trails, there's going to be new places to live that are kind of a mixed use in size and shape and what those look like, and be able to get to school and a place to work and a place to play all within that little
within
mile.
Walking distance.
Yes.
That's what's happening
and it's
there.
the same thing with downtown. There's several innovative things happening downtown. It's a little harder because it's a historic type of area, and we have a few more obstacles that we have to get through, and the infrastructure is aging downtown. So there are a few other options that we can help steer people in the direction if they're wanting to revitalize downtown. There are some options that we have for you, and we're really trying to make sure that we partner with the entrepreneurs that come in, the small businesses that come in, working very heavily with the Downtown Association and making sure that we're not just deciding for them what they think should happen. They're the ones who literally live and work downtown and have really poured in for the last 10 years or so into making downtown what it is today.
That's awesome. We have about 15, 20 seconds.
Sure.
Anything else you want to mention
Take
before
the
we
survey.
let you take the
yes,
survey?
make sure you take the survey. Connectabilene.com.
Connectabilene.com.
And then be watching, because we will need you to come to our virtual open house whenever we get to that point.
Awesome. And then we'll tell you about that, and I'm sure you'll let us know.
Yes.
All right. Cheryl Sawyers, City of Abilene, thank you very much. Go take the survey. We'll be back on Big Country Politics.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
All right, that does it for this week's edition of Big Country Politics. Remember, for the latest political headlines, always go to bigcountryhomepage.com, and we see you same time next week and same place. Thanks for watching.